Welcome to the Artwork of You, the podcast where your life is the canvas and you are the masterpiece. I'm your host, Lori Guin, and together we'll explore creativity, self-awareness, mindset, goal strategy, and the importance of accountability so that you can paint your life's portrait with confidence and ease. Remember, in the gallery of life, you're not just a spectator, you are the art. So let's grab our brushes and start creating the masterpiece that is you. Hello, my friends. I am so glad that you are here with me today because today I want to ask you a question that might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that's exactly why it's worth asking. And so the question is, are you living your life by your own design or are you living by default? Think about it for a second. Whose goals are you working towards every day? Are they yours or did they come from somewhere else? Maybe your parents, your boss, society, or maybe even your own past self trying to fit into a mold. It's so easy to get caught up in doing what we think we're supposed to be doing, what's expected of us, without stopping to even ask ourselves if it's truly what we want. And here's what I know. If you don't choose your own goals, someone else will choose them for you. I'm going to repeat that. If you don't choose your own goals, someone else will choose them for you. And it could be subtle, like the way our parents nudged us towards certain careers or how society glorifies certain paths as the ones to follow. Or it could be more overt, like your boss giving you a project that aligns with the company's vision, but not necessarily with your own. And then before you know it, you're on a path that doesn't even feel like yours. It's like you're moving, but you're not really getting anywhere. I want you to really think about whose goals you're pursuing. Are they your goals that you've consciously chosen because they align with who you are? And my hope is that by the end of this episode, you'll feel more empowered to make that distinction for yourself and take some steps towards setting goals that are truly your own. Before we get started, I'll just share a really simplified version of this. As we just got back from a trip and we were in Italy, and one of the things that I wanted to do was take a boat from Positano to Capri. So we did that. We hired a private boat to drive us to various different places, with one of the main goals being to circle around and dock at Capri for a couple of hours where we could have lunch, go shopping, etc. That was the plan. And so while we were on the boat and we are going along and really having a beautiful time, and the captain of our boat dropped us off a few places that we could jump off the boat and go swimming. It was just phenomenal. As we got closer to Capri, I started thinking, I don't really want to go to Capri. I'm really enjoying the water and swimming. And it was one of my main things that I wanted to do, was swim in the Mediterranean. And so I said to my husband, do you want to go to Capri? And he was like, I'm fine either way. And I could sense that he was seeing what I really wanted to do, but I figured he didn't really want to go shopping. So anyway, I said to the captain, listen, we don't want to dock in Capri. We'd rather spend that time going swimming. If you could take us to other places, other little caves and different areas that we could swim. It was so hot out and I wasn't feeling drawn to go shopping in the heat or to even have lunch there. And he was, of course, he was like, yeah, whatever you want to do. And he took us to this little town that was on the way back and said, how about we dock here for an hour and you can have lunch in this little town that had his favorite restaurant that had fresh seafood every day. And so that's what we did. We docked there only for an hour rather than a few hours in Capri. He took us to all these other places that we would not have gotten to see. And another great part of that was because one of our goals was to see the Blue Grotto and to go through that. And we were unable to because the water was too high. So some of the other places that he took us looked very similar, places we would have never seen had we stuck to that goal that was mapped out for us. We didn't take that idea that's what we had to do. And we said, you know what, that really isn't our goal. Even if initially we thought that it was, we pivoted and said, no, we'd rather do this. So again, I just wanted to start with that because that's a very simplified version of how sometimes we just let others take the lead and we go according to what their goals are, not our own. And in that moment, we felt comfortable enough to say, no, we don't want to do that. Even if that's out of the norm, even if 99% of the people go to Capri, they dock at Capri, they have lunch there, they shop around, then they get back on the boat. We said, no, that's not our goal. That's not what we want to do. So today, I really wanted to talk about this. And I really want you to think about whose goals are they your goals that you've consciously chosen because they align with you and who you are and what you want, or have they been handed to you, either directly or indirectly by others? My hope is that by the end of the episode, you'll feel more empowered to make that distinction for yourself and that you'll be able to take some steps towards setting goals that are truly your own. All right, let's start by talking about goals. When I say goals, I'll be referring to both targets and goals. Targets are something you aim for, and goals are the things you do to reach your targets. Both are really important. Let's break it down for a bit, because not all goals are created equal. Some goals are deeply personal and come from a place of genuine desire, a place that feels really authentic to who you are. And other goals, they might look like they belong to you on the surface, but if you dig a little deeper, you'll find they were actually planted by someone else. Think about the different types of goals you set for yourself. There's personal goals, like wanting to get in shape, learn a new skill, or improve a relationship. Then there are professional goals, like getting a promotion, starting a business, or reaching a certain level of success. And then there are those goals that are handed to you without you even realizing it, like societal goals, the ones that suggest there's a specific timeline for how your life should unfold: graduate, get a job, get married, buy a house, have kids, climb the ladder of the career. They're not bad goals, but are they your goals? This is where you need to be honest with yourself. Are you setting goals that truly resonate with you? Or are you unconsciously adopting goals because that's what everyone around us seems to be doing? It's easy to get swept up in the expectations of society and expectations from family, or even what our friends are doing. But here's what I want you to think about. When was the last time that you sat down and really asked yourself, what do I want? Not what do you think you should want, and not what you've been told you should want, but what do you genuinely desire? It's really important to recognize this, because when we're not living in alignment with our true goals, life can really start to feel a bit off, and you might not even know why. For example, you're working really hard, but you're not getting any closer to a feeling of satisfaction or fulfillment. That's often a sign that you're working toward a goal that isn't actually yours. And so keep this in mind. A chosen goal feels different than an assigned one. It feels like coming from a deeper place within you, a place that knows what you want, even if it's not the most logical or obvious path. And an assigned goal, on the other hand, will often feel like a should rather than a want. It feels heavy, burdensome. It doesn't motivate you in the same way. And so what happens when you find yourself chasing goals that aren't truly yours, it can really lead to a lot of hidden consequences that we might not immediately recognize. First off, there's the emotional and mental toll it can take on you. Pursuing a goal takes energy, physical, mental, and emotional energy. But if that goal isn't genuinely aligned with who you are, it's going to feel like you're swimming upstream. You might start to notice feelings of frustration, anxiety, and even resentment creeping in. There's a nagging feeling that something isn't right. You're putting in all this effort, but instead of feeling excited and energized, you feel drained and maybe resentful. And that's because deep down, this isn't really what you want. It's what someone else wants for you. That someone else can even be a previous version of you. So in a way, there truly is a hidden cost of chasing goals that aren't yours. You can end up building a life that looks great on paper, but it feels empty inside. It's not just about big goals either. Even the smaller day-to-day things add up. Just like the story I told you earlier about Capri, I probably would have had a little resentment and regret had we not done it the way that we did it. Especially when you find yourself slipping into people-pleasing mode and doing things simply because you feel like you should, which would have been easy for me on the boat. I could have easily thought I needed to please the captain, that, oh, I can't ask him to do something different than what's on the plan. And when you fall into that trap, over time, all these shoulds really can start to weigh you down. I also want to address burnout for a moment, because burnout doesn't just come from working hard like many people think it does. It comes from working hard on things that don't fulfill you. That feeling of exhaustion that you have that goes beyond being just tired, that feeling is when you're emotionally spent and mentally checked out because you're giving so much of yourself to something that doesn't give back to you. When you're working towards someone else's goals, that's when the burnout creeps in, and it becomes harder to find joy and motivation in what you're doing. So, how do you know if you're following goals that aren't really yours. Aside from the symptoms and signs I just shared with you, there are some other signs. If you feel constantly drained, uninspired, or trapped, it might be a sign that the goals you're working towards aren't aligned with your true self. If you're always looking for distractions or a way to avoid certain tasks, if you're feeling a sense of dread about your work or life direction, that's a big red flag. It's not that you're lazy or unmotivated, it's that you're working towards something that doesn't really resonate with you. Do any of these signs resonate with you? Are there areas of your life where you're pushing forward on a path that doesn't actually feel like yours? You've heard me say this countless times. Self-awareness is the first step. Just pause and think about it. Don't beat yourself up or feel guilty. Get honest with yourself so that you can start making different choices that are more aligned with who you are and what you genuinely want. So why do we sometimes let others choose our goals for us? And how can we start to reclaim our power and design our own path? In other words, shift from living a life by default to living a life by design, one goal at a time. Because it's not like we wake up one day and decide, hey, I'm going to start living my life according to someone else's plan. It's usually more subtle than that. And there are a few reasons why this happens. And I think it's important to understand them so that we can start to make different choices. First, there's social conditioning. From a young age, we're often taught what's considered quote unquote normal or quote unquote acceptable. Our families, schools, communities, and culture play a big role in shaping our ideas about success, happiness, and what a good life looks like. While some of this conditioning can be helpful, a lot of it can also be limiting. We learn to want things because that's what's expected of us, not necessarily because it's what we truly desired. Maybe you were told directly or indirectly that a certain career path was the most respectable path. Get a degree, get a job, get married, have kids, because that's what everyone around you was doing. It's easy to adopt these goals without even questioning if they really align to who you are. Then there's also the fear of judgment and failure. And this one is huge because we often let others dictate our goals because we are afraid of being judged if we choose a different path. What if people don't understand? What if they think I'm crazy? What if I fail? You know what I say? What if I turn into an alligator? Anyway, I digress. These fears can be keeping us playing so small and sticking to the goals that seem safe or acceptable to others. But here's the thing, living in fear of judgment or failure is a recipe for regret. I know that in a perfect world, everybody who loves you would love and support whatever decisions and choices that you decide to make, whatever goals you decide to pursue. However, we of course all know that's not necessarily true, right? And so it's important to remember their opinions should not define your life. When you really think about it, whose opinion matters more, yours or theirs? And then there's also our good old comfort zone, right? Because it's so much easier to go with the flow, to follow the path that's already been laid out than to create a new path for ourselves. Because it's familiar, it feels secure, and there's a certain comfort in knowing what's expected of us. But comfort isn't the same as fulfillment. Staying in your comfort zone might keep you safe, but it also keeps you stuck. Often, you don't even realize you're stuck until you start to feel that restlessness, that nagging feeling that something is missing, that you're capable of more. But instead of listening to that feeling, you might stay where you are because that's what you know. And here's another big one. I'd like to call it the illusion of certainty. Because following someone else's goals can feel like it offers a certain kind of security. If you're following a well-trodden path, you know what to expect. It's like there's a blueprint or a roadmap to follow, and that can feel really reassuring. But this is just an illusion because there is no guarantee that following someone else's path will bring you any fulfillment or happiness. In fact, it often does just the opposite because true security comes from knowing yourself and having the courage to pursue what truly matters to you, even if it means stepping into the unknown. And finally, there's the very common one of not knowing what we really want. And this is something we don't talk about enough, I think, because sometimes we let others choose our goals because we simply don't know what we want for ourselves. We've been so busy doing what's expected of us that we've lost touch with our own desires and passions. And that can feel really overwhelming to think about. And to think about what you truly want because it requires introspection. And sometimes it requires letting go of what you thought was your path. Remember, it's not a failure. It's an opportunity. It's an invitation to explore and to get curious and to start asking yourself the big questions. And this is where having a coach can really be beneficial because we often don't even know what questions to ask ourselves. And so if any of these reasons resonate with you, please know that you're not alone because we've all been there. The important thing is to recognize it and then to start challenging those patterns. And so the first step to reclaiming your power and designing a life that you choose to live is self-reflection. You'd be surprised how often people skip over this step because they're so busy doing, achieving, and moving forward that they forget to even check in with themselves. So I encourage you to take some time, real intentional time, to sit with yourself and ask, what do I really want? And when you do this, don't filter your thoughts. Don't think about what's practical, what's expected, or what's realistic. Just let yourself dream a little bit. What excites you? What would really truly make you fulfilled? Sometimes our true desires are buried under the layers of what we think we should want. Give yourself the space to dig a little bit deeper and truly uncover what's really there. To help with this, here are a few self-reflection exercises that I talked about in my weekly email last week, and I thought you might find them helpful. If you're not on my email list, I suggest that you get on it, right? And you can do that by going to my website, The Artwork of You. Start journaling. Write down your thoughts, dreams, and your frustrations, whatever comes up. Don't censor yourself. Just let it flow. Another great exercise is visualization. Picture yourself 5, 10, or even 20 years down the road. What does your ideal day look like? Who are you with? What are you doing? How do you feel? It's not about making a perfect plan. It's about getting in touch with what you truly desire. Once you've done some self-reflection, then it's time to move into goal setting with intention. This means setting goals that are aligned with your values, passions, and vision for your life. To do this, you might want to use a framework that'll help you clarify your goals. Start by identifying what's most important to you. What are the core values that drive you? What are the things that light you up and make you feel alive? Once you have a sense of these, you can start thinking about goals that align with them. These will be the goals that will be truly meaningful and fulfilling because they're coming from a place that's authentic to you. And now I want you to keep in mind, choosing your own goals can also bring up resistance. It's totally normal to feel fear and uncertainty when you start to set goals that are truly yours, especially if they go against what's expected or comfortable. And you might hear that little voice in your head saying, who do you think you are to go after this? Or what if you're not good enough? That's where you have to get really good at recognizing these thoughts for what they are. It's just fear talking. And the truth is, fear doesn't go away. It's always going to be there when you're stepping into something new and unknown, but you do not have to let it drive the car. Acknowledge it, thank it for trying to protect you, sit with it for a minute, and then move forward. It's not the same as feel the fear and do it anyway. It's, again, acknowledging it, figuring out where it's coming from, and then taking action. Sometimes a big goal can feel really overwhelming, but when you break it down into smaller steps, it becomes more manageable. And so ask yourself, what's one small thing I can do today to move closer to this goal? Doesn't have to be a big leap, just a small step forward that'll build progress because progress will build momentum for you. You'll also want to surround yourself with support because support is just so important, being around people who genuinely want to see you succeed. And this could be in the form of accountability partners or coaches, or even a community of like-minded people who really, truly understand and support your journey. Because again, when you have people in your corner who believe in you and encourage you to pursue your goals, it becomes a lot easier to stay on track, especially when things get tough, as they inevitably will. And finally, remember that choosing your own goals is an ongoing process. It's not something that you do once and then forget about because life changes, you change, and your goals will likely change. What's important is that you stay connected to yourself and keep checking in to make sure the path you're on feels right to you. So take a moment today to start this process. Sit down, get quiet, ask yourself, what do I really want? Not what's expected, not what's easy, but what's true for you. The more you practice this, the better you will get at it, and the more aligned your life will become with who you truly are. And trust me, there's nothing more powerful than living a life that feels authentically yours. It might mean making some really tough decisions and having some honest conversations with yourself and possibly with others. And you might realize that certain habits, routines, or even relationships are no longer serving you or aligning with the goals you've set for yourself. And again, that's okay. It's not about cutting people or things out of your life harshly. It's about being honest with yourself about what's helping you move forward and what's holding you back. You want to let go of what doesn't serve you so that you can make space for what does. And another part of this I don't want to leave out is getting comfortable with discomfort. Because when you start making changes that reflect your true goals, it's natural to feel a little bit unsettled and even scared. That's a sign you're growing. If everything feels too comfortable, you're probably not pushing yourself enough. Remember, real growth happens outside of the comfort zone. And so as you move forward, I want you to keep in mind that realigning your goals and making intentional choices is about being honest with yourself about what you want and having the courage to make changes that reflect that truth. Again, it's not always easy, but it is always worth it, because at the end of the day, living a life that feels really authentic and true to who you are is the greatest reward of all. You deserve a life that feels like yours. And so if you found this episode helpful, I'd love to hear from you. I want you to share your thoughts, your insights, even the steps you're taking to reclaim your power and choose your own goals. You can reach out to me on social media or drop me an email, because I truly do love hearing from you, and your journeys inspire me just as much as I hope my journey inspires you. And if you're looking for more support on designing a life that truly reflects who you are, I offer a 90-minute strategy session to get you started. Or if you're ready to commit, consider enrolling in my private one-to-one high-touch coaching and mentoring program. Sometimes having guidance and accountability can make all the difference in the world. You don't have to do it alone. There are people who believe in you and want to see you thrive, myself included. And so to wrap things up, remember that you are the artwork in your life. You have the power to choose your path, to set your goals, and to create a life that truly feels true to you. Don't settle for a life that's been mapped out by others. Step into your own power, trust yourself, and start showing up like the masterpiece you are. That's a wrap for today, my friends. Thank you for sharing your time with me. And remember to show up in your life like the masterpiece you are, because you are the artwork. Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Have a fabulous day.